Hello everybody and welcome to our final spoiler roundup here for Drowned City. All the spoilers are done, spoiler season is behind us, but I mean it's not the end of Drowned City cards, we still have like a whole big chunk of the box left to see, so we're going to be doing another video in the future where Eric and I are going to be talking about those, but these are all the spoiler cards spoiled by some awesome content creators, which you can find links to from the we just recorded 2 gameplay videos, so yeah, you can find from the Fantasy Flight Games post down in the video description. Let's dive in and let's talk about the card that I am very excited about because there's never been a card. It's like it's
Ozymandias, isn't it?
It's like the what is it? The Enigma and Amigara Fault. Like this hole was made for me. It's never been more perfect. So this is Gift of Nodens, a 2-cost, 5 experience survivor card. It's a ritual and takes up the arcane slot. As a reaction, when you commit cards to a skill test you're performing, choose a survivor skill card in your discard pile and discard 1 card from your hand. Commit the chosen skill to this test. After this skill test resolves, place that card on the bottom of your deck, limit once per round.
That's really good.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few truths in the world that are always true. And one of them is that recursion is powerful. It's easily the strongest effect in like any game. Recursion is just a very powerful thing. And this has a lot of knobs to make it so you can't do that, right? Yeah. It's a limited level of recursion. But baby, this is made for me.
Yeah, I didn't realize that survivors were the mono black color.
They are actually. They have all the. I actually haven't played a survivor with you.
No, I don't.
I mean, Bob's technically a survivor, but he's a rogue.
I've played all the survivors.
Who have I played with you? I've played Mark, Harvey. I did Kimani and Skids in Forgotten Age. I was Ashcan Pete in Circle Undone, so he was a survivor. In Dream Eaters, I was Winifred and...
Who was the other person? You were the dentist.
Oh, Vincent Lee, the surgeon.
The surgeon, that's right.
And then right now I'm playing...
A dentist for your body.
Yeah, I'm playing Bob Jenkins. But you actually I haven't played my... niche, which is skill sling and survivor. That's like my play style. And when I look at this card, I get fucking hungry. I think this card is generally pretty fair and well balanced, and I think with a lot of people playing it is gonna be good.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna fucking break this card over my knee like Bane breaks Batman's back in The Dark Knight Rises. Yeah, like when everyone they commit a skill, and I'm like, you were merely adopting committing a skill to a test. I was born in it. Like, so. What do you think of this card before I continue to rant and rave like a madman about it?
Yeah, wow. Apparently, I love it. Choose a skill card in your discard pile and discard 1 card from your hand. That's really good. So it's a recursion engine that feeds itself if you throw a skill card in there to feed the skill card machine.
Yep.
Then you commit the chosen skill to the test, so that's really great. And then resolve, so not even if it succeeds or fails, which is great. So it goes back into the deck. So the way I see this is you need... So the way I see this is that if you're an all-skill deck, you are infinitely cycling all of your cards.
Yeah.
Because this is net neutral. Like, all it does is it puts a card back into your deck. So your goal is to play all your skill cards aggressively. Get as thick a graveyard as you can, or at least a couple of good ones in your graveyard, and then plan to loop them back in.
So luckily they do have some very good safety valves to stop that from happening.
Okay.
One is that if you are becoming card draw positive with your skills, you will eventually outpace what you can do because you can only do this once, right? The other thing is because you need to discard a card from your hand to do it, you need to have card draw to make up for that, right? So I do think that you're going to have like a window where you're going to like go crazy. Like your last like 8 cards, you're going to be like, whoa, why am I drawing all my banger skill cards? Oh, that's right. It's because of Gift of Nodens. And then you do your cycle and then you just start all over again. So I do think that luckily, again, there's a lot of valves it's basically because it exhausts and because you need to also spend a card as like a copy of that skill. But I think you're very right that you could discard a skill card for this and then play that again next turn, right?
Yeah.
or you could just turn any card essentially into a card in your discard pile that you want to commit, right?
Who is it? Is it Gloria that puts cards under her and then plays them?
Play what kind of cards? Like, yeah, she takes cards from the encounter decks. Diana takes cards from her deck.
So this is like a pocket Diana.
It kind of is like Diana with her signature, her Twilight Blade. It kind of is like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to see. Or no, who is it? There's somebody who recently was released that adds cards under him.
Oh, George Barnaby.
Yeah.
Yes, and he's in this cycle, and he's going to work really well with this.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. He's like it's like anybody gets to be a slightly discounted George Barnaby.
Yeah.
Which is really great to add to any other survivor.
Yes, yeah, 100%. So here's what I'm going to do in Silas Marsh. Silas Marsh, my boy. I'm going to play Brute Force.
Yeah.
The strongest skill card in the game. Gives you +3 fist. If you succeed by 2 or more, you get to deal 3 damage to a guy. Just boom! Right in the face, right in his nose. He can't see, he's seeing stars. He can't even breathe, right?
Yep.
It's in my discard pile. I just play discard a card, get that resourceful that was already in my discard pile, get that brute force back. Hit that guy again, and then play with my gift of Nodens next turn to just brute force him again. Get it on the bottom of my deck. Maybe if I'm feeling a little bit spicy, I have versatile and a scroll of secrets to keep putting my things on the top of my deck if I'm feeling a little bit spicy. Or alternatively, just go draw power crazy, because that's what I can do with my Unrelentings. This card is I can't wait to play with this card. I'm never gonna play with Travis and Bryn because they would hate it. Because it's just gonna be a nauseating amount of value that I'm gonna be able to achieve from this card. I cannot fucking wait. I haven't been more excited about a card in a long time because we haven't got crazy survivor skill support in a while, and this one is really good.
I was actually an immediate thought for me was, how do I reshuffle my deck, or how do I get the bottom of my deck onto my top immediately upon reading this?
Yeah, any reshuffle effects are very powerful.
Yep.
And do you know what is a really good one? That skill that you played.
Yeah.
The persistence, because I'm pretty sure that shuffles in, right?
I think so.
Oh, Eric, yes. You actually just unlocked that in me. Persistence, yeah. So you may commit the persistence to a skill test from your discard pile. If you do, shuffle into your deck after this test ends.
Yeah.
So you can discard this card to trigger the Gift of Nodens, and then
use this card
to shuffle your deck in.
to shuffle your deck so it's not on the bottom anymore.
Oh, yes! Yes! Yeah, and that's really
So I want you to play this card when it comes out in a survivor deck, and I'm going to play the Dark Horse card and just be the worst.
Yeah. Woo! Yeah, no, that's with persistence. That's pretty hype. That's an easy reshuffle. You'll be able to trigger multiple times in a scenario.
And persistence, and persistence counts for...
Yeah, and persistence is really good. So no, I think notably with persistence, it's going to actually have its effect replaced by Gift of Nodens. Mm-hmm. But what persistence is really good for is triggering as a discard as an option to put in there as well.
Because having cards that you can just throw away to then play from your graveyard is exactly like... When I'm looking at this for mono black, I'm like, okay, what can I throw into my graveyard that I can then get value from?
Yeah.
Just by having discarded it.
Yeah.
Like, how can I turn this loss into a net negative?
Yeah.
Like a net neutral, and persistence is what does that. In fact, it even makes it value positive.
I should build you a mono black survivor deck.
I would
because
love that.
They actually have a lot of they're not the only class that does it. If they kind of share it with Guardian, but they have the self damage for better effects as Guardian. Love Gift of Nodens. Can't wait to fucking ruin the game's day with it. All right. Next up, we got Obscure with some sick-ass art. 2 cost, 2 experience, rogue class card. Commits for a book, a foot, and a wild. It's a ritual, takes up the arcane slot. Limit 1 per investigator. Seal the 0 token. You may resolve this keyword again after you reveal location or put a new location into play. When you engage an enemy, exhaust Obscure and release a token sealed here. Immediately fight or evade that enemy. During the skill test, your base skill value is equal to the shroud value of your location.
Ooh. This is an interesting card. This is an interesting card. I think that this is an interesting card. I'm going to say something spicy. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I would put it in a green deck.
Yeah.
I would put it in a deck that splashes green.
Yeah, I can do the rogue splash, like O2 rogue. Yeah.
Because I think that a rogue that can fight really well, that is planning on fighting or evading, is not going to have as much value out of this because their fight or their evade is already going to be high.
Yes.
And there's very few shroud locations where you're going to see this benefit you in a major way. The immediately is what's great. That's where the power comes from. So immediately fighting or immediately evading for that extra action. But the shroud value is actually a weakness because, in my opinion, shroud values tend to be
3, 2, sometimes 4.
Sometimes 4. But like you're rarely going to get this on a 6 shroud location and feel like you're winning.
Yeah.
So I want to put this in to a deck that is... maybe it does go in green because you do a lot to bump up your fight. You do a lot to bump up your evade. I do see this more as a splash card.
Yeah, this one's very interesting to me because I've kind of been like the same boat where I think the design of this card is exceptionally interesting. It's just a question of how viable is it, right? Like, what do you need to actually like make it work? From what I remember from people discussing about it, the fighter evade, even though it doesn't actually work in the way the card is formatted text-wise, can be used to trigger like a weapon attack or like an evade on something else.
Okay.
I could be wrong. That might have changed since I last read it, but I'm pretty sure there was some kind of confusion because it doesn't read that way, but it actually technically works that way. Because it would have to say immediately take a fight or evade action against that enemy. It would have to say that to mimic Ursula Downs' text.
Yeah.
What I really like about this card is, like you said, it's interesting. Which sounds like it's sounding... Because, like, here's the thing. I actually do not think this card is bad. But I do not think this card is good. Right? I think that's kind of like the thing. I think this card is... So one thing I've realized... last Friday on stream, we did a patron game day. And I told everybody, we're close enough to Drowned City. I feel comfortable if we build with Drowned City cards. And there was a lot of Drowned City cards that I've seen played, and I played with that day, that I was kind of like not sold on. But then I put them into actual action, and I was like, wait a minute, this actually is pretty solid. Like this, like Nose to the Grindstone as an example. It's a specialist card that you and I were both like, yeah, this could be good. But it actually was, I really thought it was powerful in the deck, right?
Okay.
And I'm curious if this is going to be the same thing, right? But the issue is, again, is you can't control shroud values of your location.
No.
Right? But at the same time, because this is a reaction, you don't need to trigger it unless you want to, right? And I feel like stuff like this is going to live better in investigators that do not care about the power of the actions they take because they are trying to find value elsewhere. So I agree with you in the idea that this is probably a good rogue splash, but if I'm looking at rogues, in Winifred Habermuck, for example, she just cares about the ability to take more tests. So maybe just having this in play and be able to take an extra fight or evade action eventually, right, can be good because she cares more about committing the skill cards in her hands. Like an extra evade thing, even though maybe she's only evading at 3, or she's now fighting at 3, which she was anyway, maybe she cares more about the card she's committing to take advantage of it. So that's kind of like what I'm feeling.
I did also have a thought about that one card that I played very heavily, where it was on your first test you get minus whatever, on your next test you get bonus, on your next test you get blah, blah, blah. Whatever that was.
Yeah, yes. I don't know the one. Was it maybe Quick Learner and Stella?
I think so.
Yeah, so like Wendy Adams could take advantage of that, and she could play both those cards. Like that's interesting as well. Also, like I'm curious, like in someone like we're getting into a little bit of the jank territory, but like Leo Anderson or a Guardian who can play this card, or like Skids and engaging on command, right? Like you can like suck an enemy to you. I'm curious if there's some sort of value there.
I also think, are there any cards that increase the shroud value of a location?
In Seeker, yes, there is.
Because that could potentially be fun as well, is to play a deck that very intentionally plays around the idea of increasing shroud value and then splashes obscure as a way to just occasionally be like, and a dodge you.
Yes, like this could be something that you use in, they might be planting for Lucius Galloway, right? Like the problem is those are very limited things right now, but there could be a chance that maybe there's going to be more of that. That's something that actually you've seen a lot of custom content creators make. They've made a lot of Seeker cards that like increase the shroud of locations, and I think it also would work in the rogue class. So I know I've said this for a lot of cards, but this potentially could be a plant for an archetype we're going to see expanded in the future. Because I think this card, as I said earlier, is not bad. It's very interesting, and I think it has potential to be good, and maybe it's because we feel like something's missing, and we're going to discover that down the road. Compare this to Blood of Thoth, which we both were like, this card's bad, and it's just because the card seems so like hammered down into unplayable territory, too many like walls. This doesn't actually have any walls on it.
No.
This is telling you to try something new, and that to me usually means that there's something we're not seeing, or there's something that might make it more obvious of what to try with it in the future. That's Ozymandias' sister, the new investigator.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would play her. If she was an investigator, I would play that 100%.
All right, next one we got here is Cosmic Revelation. This is a zero-cost Seeker event that one experience. It commits for a brain and a book. It's an insight and a spell, so you can put it in your Joe Hunch deck. Choose even or odd. Each investigator reveals each non-weakness card in their hand with a cost matching the chosen option. In player order, each investigator may either choose to either draw one card from their deck or play one card they revealed from their hand, paying its cost.
Wait, what? Each investigator reveals one non-weakness card with their hand with a matching cost to the chosen option. In player order, they may choose to either draw one card from their deck or play the card they revealed from their hand.
Yeah. So like if I said even, you and I could each reveal an even card.
But there's no rules against telling each other what's in our hands.
There's no rule, but it says it's recommended to not talk. That's why we as a group, we don't talk about in our hands, but we kind of like infer.
Yeah.
Or like whenever we're building a combo, I'd ask Bryn like, is the horse in the stable? And he was like, I have the horse, but we don't have the stable, right? Like,
That's chaos.
Yeah, we would say stuff like that, right?
I like how all you've done
is renamed it. Yeah,
is renamed it and been like, now we're not breaking the rule.
Yeah, but it's one
which
thing
is not a rule.
But one thing we realized is Bryn and I had a different definition at one point what horse and stable meant.
Oh, well, I'm glad this card exists now as tech to assist you in further confusing each other.
Yeah. So
is the horse feeling on 4 feet?
Yeah.
Or on less
Yeah, remember
feet?
I was also like with Travis and I, we were playing it was the dogs, and I was like, do you have a treat or a toy? He was like, what the fuck are you talking about? But yeah, no, we have table talk. Also, it's like one of those things that we're pretty quick to infer because we've played so much. But we don't ever actually just like, for the love of the game, we don't say, yeah, I have a machete, right? Like we don't say stuff like that. But I think there's nothing actually stopping you from being like, okay, I mean, apart from you sucking, being like, how many even cards do you have? How many odd cards do you have? Or like being like, do you want me to say even or odd, right?
Yeah.
I think this card is balanced around the idea that that players don't say exactly what they're saying they have in their hand.
Yeah.
With that said, I think this card's really good in 3 or 4 player. I think it's pretty bad at 2. It's obviously unplayable at 1. But I think in 3 or 4, it's going to see a lot of play. I do think, though, that it's going to... Like, how many people are going to likely be able to play all the cards they want to play with this? And I think its hit rate is lower than it actually reads.
I have a counterpoint for you.
Yeah.
I think this card is bad.
Oh, wow. All right, go for it.
I think this card is bad because it's one experience for a zero-cost event that will then have to play a card so that you can draw. You can either, in my thought, it's play a card, so take an action for everybody at the table to draw a card. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
What that means is you have paid an experience and you have paid a card to effectively draw 3 to 4 cards.
Yeah.
I would much rather put curse tokens into a bag
And play
to
deep
get that
knowledge. Yeah,
effect.
pay deep knowledge. Yeah.
I would much rather play a card that gets all the investigators in my area
Yeah.
as a better weakness. Now, the playing a card they revealed from their hand is potentially fun.
It really depends on, like... So I think the power of this card really depends... I think you've hit the nail on the head. This card really depends on how many plays you can hit.
Yeah.
Right? And if you can hit 4 plays, like, that's very good.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to deny that for a second. That is on par with a Guardian card that costs 4 experience, right? But I do think that this card is going to have, like, less hits than it does actually read. Yeah. I think it's going to be more like maybe it's good enough for your play style to... I'm going to play a card and you guys each get to draw a card. Like, maybe that's good enough for you.
Yeah.
And it might be. Like, for me, it might be. But I don't even play Deep Knowledge anymore. I don't like passive economy options. I like active economy, where I'm winning the game while also doing this. So I look at Cosmic Revelation, and I think, and this is a me problem, or like, I'd rather just play Perception 2 and draw 2 cards, right?
Yeah.
But I do think this card is going to be a good workhorse in 3 or 4 player games.
That's fair. I am not excited by this card.
I mean, I'm not either. I'm just looking. I'm taking away my own personal bias and looking at like looking back and being like,
I think if you are playing this card and you are regularly messing up the even or odd, consider breaking the rules and just asking people if they'd like even or odd, because that's where the value of this card comes from.
Yeah.
And I think if you are not using this to play something revealed from your hand out of turn, I don't necessarily see
that is actually something that in our Discord I do agree that I think this card becomes really nice if you're able to play events that you're not supposed to play at certain times.
That is where I see the value of this card. If you're using this for draw, I actually don't think it's that valuable. If you're using this to help allies play cards out of turn, that is where I see this being worthwhile.
So on that, let me ask you a question, because this is food for my thought too. 3 players, how many plays do you need to have this be worth it? So how many people play versus draw? Is it like 2 play and 1 draw, 2 out of 3?
For me, yeah.
So then 4 players, is it 2 draw, 2 play, or is it 3 play, 1 draw?
I just want to get 2 plays out of turn off of this card.
I feel like for me personally, in 4 player, I actually would want to hit at least 75%. I think I want to be above 50 on each of them for me to it be really worth it.
The thing is, in a 3-player to 4-player game, the nice thing is I can always reasonably assume that I can choose even or odd for me to play something or to draw a card.
Yes.
And I'm probably going to use this for myself to draw a card.
Yeah.
Because again, the power is getting other people on off turn.
Yeah.
To take an action.
But the thing is, like, I think also, like, even if someone just like puts an asset into play, if they're not using that asset, I'm still feel like, why would I want to spend my time doing that? Like, I feel like, to me, if I really want to play this card, I want like everybody to take advantage of it. But that's just like, I think a lot of people fairly think this card is very strong. I think that's a very fair assessment of this card.
I'm not vibing it.
And I'm kind of like in the middle.
Now,
yeah.
The place I want to see this, the thing I want to see happen with this card, is a 0 an even or an odd?
0 is even.
So, I want to see someone Cosmic Revelation into someone else's Cosmic Revelation.
Yes, no, that has already been talked about, yes.
That is what I want to see.
Yes, and
that is where this card
think,
goes crazy for me.
And I think that is, I'm always a believer that combo plays like that should be rewarded, like tables building their decks together. I think that is always very fun.
That's what I like.
All right. Working a Hunch. This is a card that's in your Joe deck. It's a 2 experience version now, which is very much similar, except now you can discover a clue from any revealed location.
That's insane. That's insane. Holy cow, that's... I compare everything to Luke Robinson because it's just my favorite piece.
It is, you basically become Luke Robinson for 2 experience with that card.
Why? What are you doing? Yeah. Why are you taking away from Luke Robinson?
Travis would be so proud to hear you say that. So I think this upgrade is good. It's insane for solo play. Also, just it changes. There's something I've been talking about recently on the channel, where if you can change how enemies act, you actually have. That's where a lot of power is in the game that I think a lot of players don't take advantage of. And I think working a Hunch...
We run away all the time, so I know what we do.
I think working a Hunch does a very similar thing, where it changes how you deal with locations. Because now you can just be like, I'll grab that one later, right? Like, or I'll get my working a Hunches when the time comes. I don't think everyone's going to play it, but I think the people who do play it are going to really like this card.
The way I view this card is that this card... So there's some other crazy things I think this card can do, and I think this is worth discussing. I've come to realize that a lot of experienced locations make it very difficult to either stay on them, or they have a very unnaturally high shroud.
Yeah.
Or they put them in a weird, janky place that it's very hard to get to.
Yeah.
And a card like Working a Hunch allows you to mitigate a huge amount of that. There's so much power in being able to reveal a clue from any revealed location that it's just unbelievable to me.
Yes.
It's also funny to me that it says any revealed location, because in theory, clues don't get placed until the location is revealed.
Yeah.
So even if you just said from any location, you could be like, sure, I'm going to take one from Carcosa, Act 3, Scene 2,
Yeah.
but then it's not actually in play, so no clue is generated.
Yeah, so I imagine stuff like that is just future-proofing, because then like they never have to like suddenly be like, we made a scenario. There actually might even be a scenario where clues are placed on unrevealed locations, potentially.
Oh, that's fair.
I can't think of one on the top of my head, so there probably isn't, because I probably would remember, but there might be some weird one that I haven't played that much. But it's always better, like, because then imagine if they're just like, they do a scenario where they're like, there's clues on these locations, and someone's like,
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
But I do think that this is incredibly strong. I think that this is going to potentially change your tempo in regards to victory fishing, but also in regards to some scenarios where you're like trying to get out, or you're trying to get all the clues off of a certain location. And working a hunch is going to completely control that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, so if you just like look at it in the perspective of even just changing, I have one clue left on this victory location, but we have to start making our way out. I'll draw my working a hunch in 4 turns, and you can just start moving. You can just ignore it, and then you don't have to take a test. You don't have to like stress about the autofail. You just know that in the future, you're going to be able to grab that clue. And that's a very powerful change of pace for the game.
I will also just say in general, I think that working a hunch is a very strong card, perhaps more powerful, I think, than I realized at the time, because it's fast. It's a cost to do a free investigate action. Now, I know a lot of seekers are going to want to get as much value as possible out of doing one investigate to pick up multiple clues or things like that, which I respect. But I find working a hunch already to be very powerful because of its action, because you're spending 2 value to get a free investigate at no time cost.
Yeah.
And this is just gravy.
All right, we got Bum's Rush. This is a 2-cost event in the rogue class. It's a tactic and a trick. It commits for a book and a fist. It's evade. Add your fist value to your skill value for this evasion attempt. If you succeed by 2 or more, deal that enemy 1 damage. If that enemy is not elite, you may move it to a connecting location.
First off, I'm pretty sure that guy's finger is going in that other guy's eye.
Heck yeah, take it out. Who needs it?
Yeah, wow. I think this is an incredibly powerful card. I think it's incredibly powerful because it's level 0, which means anybody who can splash rogue can do this. So it really opens up a bunch of options for anybody who has high fist and can splash rogue. The fact that it deals damage and it moves an enemy is great.
Yep.
And yeah, I think it's good. I think it's a good card.
So I played with this card in Patron Game Day, and it's very good. So what makes it very good is this is essentially freezing an enemy without actually freezing it, because you moving it a location away means if it has Hunter, it's going to be 2 turns till it comes back into something you have to deal with it, assuming you haven't moved. Yeah, card's really good. It's a very good card. And I think a lot of rogues are going to put this in their decks, because this is like there's a card that's very similar called Cheap Shot, where you add your fight, but you add your foot to your fist. If you succeed by 2 or more, evade that enemy. Very similar effects, but this is much better. And I imagine one day, if not in this cycle, we're going to see a version that comes back into your hand that's upgraded, like the other ones do. I think this is a very powerful card. I don't think it's like broken or anything. It's just very efficient and much better than I thought it was when I put it into practice. I think this card's pretty wild, though. I think it's a good one.
I think that doing 1 damage is just gravy.
Yeah, it is. Like, I would miss the deal 1 damage. I think a few times. And I didn't care, because I was playing this to buy me 2 turns.
Yeah.
And like that is very nice in terms of having to work, like, to solve problems. Rita Young's going to love this card. She's going to have a great time with it. I think this card's super sick, though. Yeah. All right. Next up, we got Double Down. This is a 2 experience specialist card, so it's neutral. It's an innate, commits for a while, and only criminals, entrepreneurs, and socialites can play it. Max 1 committed per skill test. After you commit Double Down to a skill test, spend up to 3 resources. For each resource spent, Double Down gains Wild. So this could have a max of 7 wild icons.
I think this is good. I like this card. I like this. I think it's got all the right keywords as far as I understand. I've never played them, but I think it's got all the right keywords for big money. and it's just good.
It's mostly in rogues who can't also have low brain and they want to pass their test. I saw a conversation online about people comparing this, like, why would I want to play this over Ward of Protection? Well, it's because these classes, these traits usually can't play Ward of Protection. This is Ward of Protection for them, right? So, like, you're spending some resources to do it. Like, you're playing this in only big money decks. Like, you could play it in other decks where you just have, like, passive income. But, like, this is mostly for, like, the big money decks where you're like, ah, frick, I got to test a Brain 3 because I have a Frozen in Fear. I'll just spend, like, 2 resources to go 7-3, right?
Yeah.
And that is, you're pretty much just, like, basically buying off a test, which is very good. It doesn't guarantee because you still could draw the auto-fail, but I think this is very playable cards in especially these traits. I think, like, in terms of specialist cards, they generally are neutrals that are, like maybe a little bit spicier, but they played it very safe with specialist cards. I think this one's a very nice option for these traits.
Yeah, I wouldn't run it in every deck, but the decks that do run it, I think are going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Or going in, not just on the defensive too, but sometimes when you know, because maybe you have that tech advantage in the game, or, like, we, in our last scenario, spoilers, we were trying to evade a monster, and we basically realized we didn't have the evade. We needed to be able to do it. Something like Double Down could have solved that problem.
Could have got us there, yeah. Because it's versatile, right? You don't need to worry about what you're using it, what kind of test. All right, nothing really much to say about that one, just because it's nice and simple. All right, and I think this is our last card, and it is your favorite Carl Sanford from the Silver Twilight Lodge on it. You now can take a Sacred Oath to the Silver Twilight Lodge, Eric. So, this is a 1 cost, 5 experience specialist card. It can only be played by cultists, cursts, and Silver Twilight decks only. It's fast, and it has Myriad. So when you buy one, you get all 3. So 5 experience for 3 cards. You can only have 1 of each type by subtitle. So the Oath of Loyalty, Order, and Wisdom. You can have 3 copies in play, and up to 3 Sacred Oaths take up 1 Arcane slot. So it's 3 Arcane. They each take the Arcane slot. And they all have a reaction. When you draw a non-weakness, X or Y treachery, discard a copy of Sacred Oath from play, cancel that treachery's revelation effect, and discard it. The Oath of Loyalty has Pact or Terror. Oath of Order has Curse or Hex. And the Oath of Wisdom has Omen or Power.
That's sick. This is a sick card. This is sick. I think this is great. This is such a flavor win. I love the Silver Twilight Lodge. I don't like how they were necessarily handled in the one...
Yeah, in Circle Undone.
In Circle Undone, but I've always loved them as a bizarre weirdo order, and I think this is great. Do I think it's worth 5 experience? I'm not so sure, to be completely honest with you. So the problem I see with this is it's adding 3 cards to your deck.
Yeah.
That are a weaker protection. That are 5 experience just to get the flavor of getting to do it.
Yeah.
That are filling up a slot. And then you have to not only have them in play, but you then have to have the right token pulled.
Yeah, the right trait on the treachery, yeah.
So I'm not certain this is good.
Yeah.
But am I going to build a deck around it? Yeah. Absolutely.
So what I was just saying about Double Down, how they said a similar thing, like, why would I want to run this over Ward of Protection? And the answer to that is, great question, because most of these can run Ward of Protection, these traits. The exception that's notable is Preston Fairmont. He is Silver Twilight. I'm pretty sure he's Silver Twilight. I'm pretty sure. I have to check.
We doubt ourselves.
Always doubt yourself. You get stronger with no confidence. Because then you build Silver Twilight. See, I'm a genius. He also can play that Double Down. Because he's a social.
Can play both. You should, in fact, be playing both.
Yeah. So, like, he is, like, the exception, right? Like, he actually would have a reason to run this because it's a way for him to get some Mythos face protection. I think the idea is that because you have to... Yeah, it's like you have to draw the right one, but you don't need to discard the right one.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like campaign... It's like scenario tech that you can change from scenario to scenario, right? Mm-hmm. Like... However, with that said, There's another card that's very similar to this, kind of in mechanics. It's a Myriad card that has 3 versions that they all share an arcane slot. And it's called Empower Self. And anytime you would test Brain, you would test like a stat and replace it with Brain, you use that stat instead, and you can get +2 to that stat. But you never draw the right one at the right time. And I feel like this is going to fit into a very similar spot as that, where you're always going to draw the wrong one, wishing you drew the other one. And I see that being a big like weak point for this card. I also think it's flavorfully very cool. It has great symbols on it, so if you do want to play Well Prepared, which Diana Stanley can do, she can play this card and Well Prepared. So Well Prepared is you get to exhaust it and choose an asset, and then you get plus skill value equal to the symbols on the asset. So you can get like +2 brain, +2 book, +2 fist, +2 foot. I could see that being a case for using this card. But I do think, to copy paste what I said about Double Down, it has that problem where the specialist cards are like a little bit...
Can I counterpoint you and myself with this?
Yeah, of course.
Just for one moment.
That's what makes it fun, right?
Yeah. Would you pay 5 experience to have the ability in some decks to have an additional card that will always commit for 2 brain?
No.
Okay. What about potentially 2 fist, 2 foot, or 2 book?
No.
Then I've got no counterpoint.
Because I can do that for the 0 XP for Unexpected Courage.
That's true.
Because it kind of actually does exactly that.
In fact, it's exactly that.
But with that point said, if I was looking to use it with Well Prepared, yes.
Okay.
Then the answer is yes. But that's kind of becoming like a combo deck. And Well Prepared decks are kind of like... I think you would love playing a Well Prepared deck.
It's Diana Stanley, you said, the cultist?
No, that's one of the people who can play it. And this card... But Well Prepared is a level 2 Guardian card. So there's a lot of crossover there for it. Do I think these cards might actually surprise us one day? I do. But I think right now, without actually playing them or putting them to effect, I don't really see it. Like, I think if they costed 4 experience, I'd be a little bit more lenient. But I understand with the specialist cards, they were a little bit worried about pushing them too hard, too quick, right?
What experience would you pay for this?
3.
Okay.
I think like I'd be more forgiving at 4, but I think like if I was like in a perfect world, I want to play 1 XP for each of them.
Okay.
Because like Ward of Protection 2 is you only get 1 use of it, but you really only get 1. Like maybe if there was a way to recur it, then like again like. The thing that I try to keep in mind whenever I see and like look at these cards, I haven't seen the full box yet.
Yeah.
Like, what if there was just a card in Mystic that was like put a pact card on, like shuffle a pact into your deck, or like the top, like, or like return a pact to your hand, right?
Yeah.
And like suddenly that changes this completely.
Oh, 100%.
Right? So it's like one of those things where it's also why I've been doing these videos with you, because Travis hates trying to analyze a card without knowing everything that card might be supported by, right? So like that's why I'm kind of like, I'm not giving up on this card completely.
I'm running this, to be very clear. I'm running this.
Well, and on that note, I actually think the card is playable, right? Like I think that this could be good, a surprising scenario tech, right? That just like comes at the right time. And I think that there might be some sauce here that could do something with it. Because I don't know. Again, like also like they're designing like maybe the next box there's going to be something. It's hard for me to like completely give a full assessment on like this. And also because again, I feel like these cards might actually be surprising to play with, but they're packs, so you can't really dig them out either, right? Like you have to just find and draw them. And like with Diana Stanley, Mystics and Rogues aren't Mystic and Guardians aren't necessarily great at drawing cards. That's why I kind of like it in Preston too, because he can probably get some pretty good draw. He has Survivor and Rogue. There's some good stuff he can play with there.
I think he also sounds fun because he's potentially somebody who's not using up an arcane slot normally.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
So this is fine.
Yeah. I'm curious about stuff like, I mean, like it is very cheap. Like it's 1 a cost and fast. Like, if there's, like, some sort of, like, Diana Stanley deck that also care about you filling her arcane slots, like, maybe she could take advantage of with that. I don't know. It doesn't excite me in terms of like function, but it's very exciting in terms of flavor. I think it's a really cool design for that. But if it was 3XP, I think I'd be singing a much different tune. Yeah. And that's that. That's the end. No more new spoiler cards until the box gets leaked. When someone gets it, someone usually gets it early, and then the cards are all online soon after that. Well, like they get it, yeah. If they get it early, if it's actually shipped to them legitimately, I don't knock them for that.
I just want it to be spicy.
Yeah. If you're stealing it from the factory floor, though, so we're gonna do another roundup for one of those. But this is the end of spoiler season. It was a very long one.
Yeah, it was. But no level 5 devil.
No, not yet. Anyway, not yet. No. But thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. Eric and I will be back for another video very soon. But in the meantime, have a great one. And if you want to support the channel, do so by liking, commenting, subscribing. Or you can join our Patreon down in the video description to join all the names on this page here. Various levels with various rewards. There's deck lists released every month. There's videos released every week. There's a lot of extra content there. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one. And as always, GG's.